Welcome to Aelyrian. You've got new sci-fi stories arrive every 4 hours. If you want these journeys to continue, your support means everything. For long listening sessions, check out the playlist and enjoy the universe.
The first thing I remembered was the sound, low, metallic, and wrong. Not the crack of rifles or the shriek of plasma, but a deep harmonic vibration that crawled through the ground and into my bones. I didn't understand it at the time. Later, I'd learn it was the resonance signature of an Aelyrian field pulse, meant to disrupt kinetic shockwaves. At that moment, though, all I knew was that I was face down in dust that tasted like hot copper and lightning, and I couldn't feel my legs. My visor flickered, HUD fractured, turning critical alerts into meaningless red shards. Somewhere beyond the static in my earpiece, I heard the rest of my engineering squad shouting. Then something exploded close enough that the pressure alone flipped me onto my back. The sky spun, a storm of smoke, fractured moons, and drifting debris. I tried to inhale and got half a lungful of air before white pain tore through my side. Something inside me had definitely decided to exit the premises. I didn't pass out. I just drifted. Felt the world smearing around the edges like a watercolor left in the rain. Footsteps approached, light, deliberate, too graceful to be human infantry. I reached for the rifle strapped across my chest plate, but my arm responded like it had received the request in the wrong language. All I managed was a pathetic twitch. The figures that stepped out of the swirling dust were tall, taller than any human I'd ever seen outside exosuits. Their armor was pale silver with trailing bioluminescent lines pulsing softly, as if responding to their heartbeats. Not razors, not any species I'd seen on Threshold 9, and definitely not local colonists. One of them knelt beside me, and my fractured vision sharpened just enough for me to register details. Feminine frame. Narrow face. Large luminous eyes that shifted color with micro-expressions. Skin with a faint opalescent sheen. And ears long, elegantly curved upward like living antennas reacting to more than sound. I blinked. She leaned closer. "You're bleeding internally," she said, not through my translator, but in accented, careful English. "And your nervous system is in overload. Do not attempt movement." Her voice had a strange resonance, almost layered, as though the words contained undertones I couldn't hear but my body recognized. A hand hovered above my torso, and a soft field of shimmering blue light formed between her palms. My pain receded, not gone, but pushed far away like someone had set it behind a shield. "Where?" My voice cracked. "Where'd you come from?" We were deployed to stabilize the wounded from the northern breach. Her ears flattened in what I'd later learn meant tightly contained fear. "Your species was not expected here. The command will not be pleased." I tried to laugh, but the attempt made something inside me shift in a way I immediately regretted. She pressed one glowing hand to my sternum, and the pain softened again. "What's your name?" I managed, mostly to stay conscious. She frowned as if the concept required deliberation. "I am Lirae-Thalen of the Aelyrian medical ascendancy. You may call me Lurie." Her fingers brushed a broken segment of my armor, and her eyes hardened. Not cold, but determined, like she'd just accepted a challenge. She spoke rapidly in her language to the two Aelyrians behind her, a fluid cascade of tones and vibrations that seemed to carry intention more than grammar. They lifted me with practiced gentleness. Their armor hummed in sync around my body, stabilizing my vitals as they carried me into a structure I hadn't noticed before. Part tent, part living organism, its walls a woven matrix of pale material that pulsed as if breathing. The moment we crossed the threshold, the world muted. Noise dampeners, medical grade. She guided them to a bed that flexed and reshaped itself to my form. "You're going to lose me anyway," I said through shallow breaths. "Don't waste equipment." Her ears snapped upright, a gesture sharp enough that even in my condition, I knew I'd said something offensive. "I do not lose patience," she said with an intensity that cut through the haze. "And I do not abandon the injured because the odds displease me." The biobed tightened around my torso, pressure fields ignited. Something warm and bright surged through my veins. My vision wavered. Lurie leaned over me, eyes glowing faintly as she monitored the holographic readouts floating above my chest. "Stay awake," she commanded softly. "Human neurological patterns destabilize when unconscious during trauma. Tell me your name." "Evan," I breathed. "Evan Ward, combat engineer." Her expression softened, barely subtly but unmistakably. "Good, keep speaking, Evan Ward." "Why?" My voice slurred. "Because if you stop, I will assume you are dying, and that will irritate me." Against all logic, that made me want to smile. The biostructure dimmed around us, reacting to stress levels it sensed from her or me. I couldn't tell. Her hands hovered above my abdomen, and the light intensified, threads of bioluminescent energy weaving into my torn tissue. "You are stabilizing," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Do not drift asleep yet. I need your consciousness anchored." The pain returned, sharp, overwhelming, then vanished again, carried off by whatever field she controlled. Her face blurred, my hearing tunneled. "Lurie," I whispered. "Yes, Evan Ward." "You don't seem like a soldier." A strange sound escaped her, half breath, half laugh. "I am not one. I was reassigned here after refusing to evacuate civilians during an orbital collapse. My superiors considered my judgment inconvenient." My vision darkened. "Hey," she said sharply, the resonance. I surfaced slowly, like rising through layers of warm water, aware of sound before sight. Not alarms, not plasma fire. A soft, rhythmic pulse, almost like a heartbeat, but too regular, too controlled. When my eyes opened, I found myself staring up at a ceiling that shimmered faintly with internal biolights, patterns shifting as though the structure itself was breathing. The bed beneath me adjusted as I moved, its surface reshaping around my ribs with the unsettling intelligence of something alive. My side still ached, but the pain had been filed down to something medicinal and distant. "Do not sit up," a voice said gently from somewhere to my right. I turned my head. Lurie sat at a workstation made of the same organic material as the walls, her long fingers moving through layered holograms that reacted to every motion with glowing ripples. Her ears were lifted slightly, alert but relaxed, and I realized that for an alien with impossible geometry, she looked relieved. "You are conscious longer this time," she said. "This is good." "Longer than what?" My throat felt like I'd been swallowing sand. 7 prior awakenings, none lasted more than a minute. She stood, approaching with practiced specificity. "Your system required cyclical sedation to repair internal damage. A crude method, but effective. Crude, human pharmatech cost more than a destroyer's engine grid, and she sounded like she was talking about duct tape. How long was I out?" Her ears shifted, an Aelyrian hesitation. 2 cycles. Cycles, my brain struggled through the fog. "Hours, days." "Both," she said unhelpfully. "Your species measures time inefficiently." I stared, she reevaluated. "Approximately 6 days by human standard." 6 days, my squad. The perimeter, the ambush. Were any other humans? 17 were brought here, she said, and for a moment her expression carried that same layered resonance I'd heard on the battlefield. An emotional undertone my instincts recognized before my mind did. 13 survived. I closed my eyes, breath tight. She stepped closer and the biobed adjusted to steady my pulse. "You were not responsible for what happened," she said softly. "How would you know?" "Because you were unconscious," she replied logically. I almost laughed, almost. Her hand lifted, hovering above my abdomen, and a soft field of shimmering green-blue light enveloped my torso. Warm, weightless, stabilizing. "What is that?" I murmured. "A bioresonant lattice," she said. "It encourages cellular coherence and suppresses shock responses." "You made it sound like magic." "It is not magic," she said quickly. "It is science refined to its proper state." The way she said it, scientific pride threaded with something gentle, shifted something inside my chest. "Your vitals are improving," she continued. "You will remain weak, but consciousness can be maintained without risking destabilization." "Good," I said, "because I have a lot of questions." Her ears twitched, angling forward. "Then ask. Why did you stay with me on the battlefield?" She considered this, visibly. Aelyrians didn't hide their thoughts well. Their ears betrayed them even when their faces didn't. "You were dying," she said simply. "I am trained to prevent dying." That's the whole explanation. No, her gaze sharpened. Your stress patterns were erratic, your system collapsing. But you were fighting to remain conscious. Humans do this often. You resist expiration with a level of defiance I find compelling. I blinked, compelling. "Biologically interesting," she corrected too quickly. "Not aesthetically." She definitely meant aesthetically. Before I could tease her, the biostructure's outer membrane shifted, letting in a softer light. Dawn, I guessed, or whatever passed for dawn on this world. Shadows moved as Aelyrian medics walked through the ward, tall, graceful, glowing faintly. Only Lurie's glow was different, stronger, more controlled. "You're in charge," I observed. "Temporarily." Her tone was dismissive. Our chief medical officer was reassigned after a supply shuttle was destroyed. I now manage 23 patients and 18 staff. Alone, with assistance, she glanced at the others, but responsibility rests with me. I didn't know why that hit me so hard. Maybe because I'd seen the way she'd fought for my life with a kind of fierce, stubborn determination that didn't fit her quiet manner. Maybe because I'd never met anyone who held compassion like a weapon. She moved to check the monitors floating above the adjacent beds. I watched the way her ears angled subtly toward each patient, a sensory sweep, involuntary, instinctive. I wondered how many lives she'd saved in 6 days, how much she'd slept if she'd slept. "Lirae," I said. She turned. Her eyes were an impossible gradient, amethyst blooming into teal. They brightened slightly when I spoke her name. "You're exhausted." Her ears lowered a fraction. Aelyrians maintain efficiency through regulated micro-rest cycles. "When was your last one?" A pause, irrelevant. "That's not an answer. It is the only answer I intend to give." She returned to adjusting a bio panel, but there was a stiffness in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. Something about it made me push myself upright, too fast. Pain exploded through my ribs and vision. "Lie down," she snapped, stepping forward. The resonance in her voice rippled through my bones. "You are not stable. Do not force me to restrain the bed around you." "The bed can restrain me. It is strongly advised you do not test this." I eased back, breath shallow. She let out a sound, almost a sigh, and her hand hovered above my sternum again. The pain dulled instantly. "You do not need to sacrifice yourself for every patient here," I murmured. "That is precisely what I must do." "But at what cost?" She hesitated, something she rarely did. Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. "To me, it does not matter. To them, everything." Her ears relaxed, just slightly, as if admitting something vulnerable was physically tiring. She stepped back, gathering herself, the professional facade sliding back into place. "You will not die," she said firmly. "I have decided this. Now rest. Your body requires recalibration." It should have sounded clinical. It somehow didn't. The next time I woke, the world wasn't hazy. For the first time since the blast, my thoughts felt aligned, sharp enough to trust. My body still ached, deep bone-level soreness, like I'd been reassembled by someone who only skimmed the instruction manual. But it was pain I understood, pain I could live with. What I didn't understand was why the tent, no biorupture, was glowing a calm golden hue. "It reacts to collective stress levels," Lirae said before I could ask. She appeared beside my bed, hands clasped behind her back in that composed posture she used when she tried to pretend she wasn't worried. "Today is stable, therefore it reflects that stability. So it's basically mood lighting." Her ears angled sharply. "It is an advanced bioresponsive environment calibrated to promote neurological." "Mood lighting," I repeated, her ears flattened in irritation and Aelyrian eye roll. "You are incorrigible." "And you're still exhausted," I countered. She didn't deny it. Instead, she scanned my vitals with a handheld device etched with glowing patterns that pulsed in sync with her heartbeat. "Your recovery is now within the upper percentile of expectations," she said, "meaning I won't fall apart if I stand." "Meaning you may stand," she corrected, narrowing her eyes. "You may walk slowly under supervision." "And who supervises me?" Her ears rose in a way that made the answer obvious. "Ah, of course." When she helped me swing my legs over the bed, the biorupture rippled beneath my feet, adjusting to my weight. Every step felt strange, too light, too smooth. Aelyrian medical tech didn't just heal, it compensated, creating small gravitational adjustments that made movement easier. "You modulated gravity for patients," I said, amazed. "Only in this wing," she replied. "Your species is clumsy, it reduces falls." I blinked. "Did you just call humans clumsy?" "Statistically." She paused, and observationally. I snorted. That earned the faintest curve at the corner of her mouth, practically a grin by Aelyrian standards. We walked, well, I limped. She glided past rows of patients. Humans, Aelyrians, other species I'd only seen in briefings. A razor soldier, unconscious but stable, lay wrapped in shimmering biofilaments. "You treat them too?" I asked. "Yes. They killed thousands of your people." "And yet," she said softly, "they bleed. And when someone bleeds, we respond." I couldn't decide if that was noble or insane, maybe both. We stopped beside a young human corporal whose chest was bandaged in luminous weaves. He looked barely 20. "How's he doing?" I asked. "Recovering," Lirae said. His optimism is chemically assisted but genuine. That made me smile. She noticed. "You wish to help?" she asked. "Yeah," I admitted. "Give me something to do." Her ears rose. Surprise, curiosity, something else I couldn't name. "You may carry supplies," she said carefully. "Only the small ones," which was her gentle way of saying, "I still don't trust you not to collapse like an underbuilt scaffolding panel." For the next hour, I learned how to be useful without getting in the way. I fetched containers of bioserum, carried diagnostic nodes, reorganized nutrient packs for alien metabolisms I'd never studied. Unlike human medical tents, loud, chaotic, metallic, this place operated like a choreographed dance. Aelyrian medic teams moved in unison, communicating with subtle shifts of ear position, microtonal hums, and almost telepathic efficiency. Watching them work was mesmerizing. They didn't fight the chaos of a war zone, they gentled it. And Lirae was the fulcrum, precise, focused, driven. She moved between patients with the calm certainty of someone who refused to let death sit down, someone who negotiated with reality like it owed her a debt. Her eyes glowed faintly when she used her field energy, her long ears tracking even the slightest change in sound, breath, or fear. She wasn't just a medic. She was the gravitational center of the entire structure. At some point, as I handed her a newly charged circulatory stabilizer, she paused, studying me with a strange expression. "What?" I asked. "You anticipate my requests now," she said. "Habit, engineering training." "No," she said slowly. "It is not habit, it is alignment." Her ears tilted forward, intrigued. "You read patterns quickly. You adjust faster than most species. This is unusual for humans." "Probably because most humans don't spend their time around alien biotents." "That is statistically accurate." A moment passed, longer than necessary to hand over a tool. She didn't look away. Neither did I, her voice lowered. "Evan Ward, you adapt well to impossible circumstances. You make impossible circumstances easier to survive." Her ears fluttered, something I'd learned meant embarrassment she tried to hide. "We should resume work," she said abruptly. "Definitely," I agreed. But her hands shook for the tiniest fraction of a second before she turned away. By midday, if the shifting glow of the bioructure meant anything, I felt steady enough to move more freely. My body still protested, but it didn't threaten to fall apart. Lirae approached again, this time with a holoslab containing my updated medical file. "You are progressing faster than projected," she said. "If this continues, you will soon be ambulatory without support." "Does that mean you'll stop hovering?" "I do not hover. You hovered on the battlefield." Her ears flattened, instantly caught. That was situational. "And now?" She hesitated, her gaze dropped to the holoslab, then lifted again. "Now," she said quietly, "it is precaution." For me, the tremor passed, but the air inside the bioructure changed instantly, charged, tense, humming with a low-frequency pulse that raised the hair on my arms. Patients stirred. Medics froze for half a heartbeat before the entire staff shifted into a different mode of movement, faster, sharper, more deliberate. "Lirae?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Her long ears were angled toward the eastern wall, trembling with micro-adjustments as if parsing sounds I couldn't detect. Her pupils narrowed to thin rings of shifting light. Then she turned to me. "There has been an impact event," she said, voice controlled but tight. "Something large struck within perimeter range. Artillery? No, too localized." Her gaze flicked upward as the bioructure murmured responses through its living membrane. "More like a crash." Around us, her team assembled portable shields, diagnostic arrays, trauma beds. Every movement was efficient, practiced. This wasn't new for them. It terrified me anyway. "What do I do?" I asked. She handed me a biosensor node, small, crystalline, warm. "Stay with me," she said simply, "and be ready." Minutes stretched like taut wire. The bioructure's walls dimmed to a purplish gray, a defensive state. Soft pulses rippled through the floor, heartbeat-like but deeper. Finally, a medic sprinted inside, panting, uniform burned along one sleeve. "Commander Lirae," he called. "A transport vessel has crashed non-Aelyrian. Mixed casualties inbound, some critically unstable. We're expecting 20, no, 27. Lirae's expression didn't change, but her ears angled down, a sign of bracing for impact. "Prepare triage channels Alpha through Delta," she commanded. "Stabilization priority goes to those with compromised respiration. Evan, stay behind me until I assess the perimeter." "Yes, ma'am," I said, barely joking, because this was no time for humor. "Do not call me ma'am," she said immediately. Commander. No, then what? Just Lirae, she said without looking back. Always. The med teams rushed out to meet the incoming wave of wounded. I followed Lirae through the threshold membrane, the exterior light blinding compared to the bioructure's soft glow. Smoke rose from beyond the ridge to the east. Flames. Metal. The twisted remains of a shuttle scattered across the ground. Bodies emerged through the haze, some walking, some carried, some half-dragged. Humans. Aelyrians. A species I didn't recognize whose skin refracted sunlight like liquid crystal. Lirae moved like gravity bent around her, not running, but gliding with purpose, each step synchronized with the pulse of her medfield generator. Her voice carried through the chaos, clear and resonant. Bring the respiratory compromise to channel alpha. Severe bleeding to delta. Evan, assess structural stability of the intake wing, now. I sprinted to the intake arch, scanning the living architecture. The bioructure reacted with distress, microfractures spreading along organic fibers from the earlier tremor. East supports losing structural tension, I shouted. If we bring too many in at once, the wall's gonna deform. Reinforce it. She called back, with what? She grabbed a spool of biofilament from a medic and tossed it to me. It unfurled midair like a ribbon of pulsing light. Oh, I muttered. Right, alien duct tape. Working fast, I adhered the filament along stress points. It fused instantly, stiffening the wall like accelerated bone growth. The structure responded with a deep rumble, approval, or maybe digestion. Stability restored, I said. For now. Good, Lirae replied, already kneeling beside a human soldier with a punctured lung. Assist me. I knelt opposite her. She pressed her hands over the wound. Her palms glowed. Evan, she said, not looking at me, apply counterpressure to the dorsal side. I reached beneath the soldier's back. Higher, she instructed. Now lower, yes, there. Her confidence was a physical force. The soldier gasped, choking, blood flecking his lips. Stay with us, Lirae murmured, her voice dipping into that strange, resonant tone that bypassed the conscious mind and went straight to the nerves. Your lungs are not permitted to collapse. Not permitted, he wheezed. That is correct, she said, matter of fact. You may file a complaint later. It was absurd. It worked. Her field pulsed and the soldier's breathing steadied. We moved to the next, and the next, and the next. By the 18th patient, sweat dripped into my eyes. My hands shook. My chest felt too tight. Lirae somehow looked even more focused, ears pinned forward, eyes bright with relentless purpose. Her light flickered with exertion, but she refused to slow. She saved people who should have died. She forced death to take a number and wait. Then came the last casualty. A young Aelyrian, maybe 16, carried by two others who were barely standing. Her chest was crushed, her breath shallow, her skin flickering from pale to dangerously dull. Lirae froze just for a second. Her ears didn't move, her breath didn't move. She simply stared at the girl with a kind of horror I'd never seen from her. Lirae, I whispered, what is it? She is of my house, Lirae said, voice thin. My family, my responsibility. She knelt beside the girl, hands trembling, an emotion I had never witnessed in her. The other medics looked away. Not out of shame, out of respect, the girl's eyes fluttered open. Thalen, Lirae, she whispered. I am here, Lirae said, forcing calm. You will be well again. You were exiled, the girl rasped. Lirae flinched barely, but I felt it through the air. Exile changes nothing, Lirae said, lowering her forehead to the girl's. You are mine to protect. Family drama later, I muttered gently, healing now. Lirae inhaled sharply, steadied herself, then nodded. Evan, I need resonance synchronization. I don't know how to do that. You will follow my voice. She placed one of my hands beside hers, over the girl's shattered ribs. A soft vibration traveled through my palm, gentle at first, then rising, harmonizing with Lirae's field. She didn't guide my hand, she guided my breathing. Match me, she whispered. Lower, slower, yes, like that. The vibrations aligned. Our fields merged. The girl gasped as her chest expanded, bones knitting with rapid, shimmering reconstruction. Lirae pushed harder, light blazing through her fingers, casting sharp shadows across her cheeks. The girl's pulse stabilized. Her breathing deepened. Lirae sagged forward, catching herself on her palms. The young Aelyrian blinked up at her. You still break the rules, she whispered. Lirae exhaled shakily. It is a family trait. When the girl was taken inside for monitoring, Lirae didn't stand immediately. She stayed kneeling, staring at the ground, her ears drooping from emotional weight rather than fatigue. I knelt beside her. You okay? I asked softly. She didn't answer, she didn't need to. The tremble in her hand said everything. So I did the only thing that felt right. I put my hand over hers. Her fingers curled automatically around mine, seeking steady ground. After a long moment, she whispered, "My exile was never meant to end, but now my house has seen me. Now the command will know." "Know what?" She looked at me then, truly looked. "That I am here," she said, "and that I will not abandon anyone." "Not again." A breath escaped her, almost a laugh, almost a sob. "Evan Ward," she said quietly, "this changes everything." "Good," I said. Maybe everything needed changing. Her ears rose slowly, hopeful, uncertain. Almost. The crash site chaos faded into something worse, silence. Not peaceful silence, the kind that comes before something catastrophic. The air tasted metallic, electric. Even the bioructure seemed to sense it, lowering its lights to a dim violet, its walls tightening like muscle bracing for impact. Lirae stood in the center of the intake chamber, issuing orders in sharp, harmonic Aelyrian syllables. Her staff moved with synchronized urgency. The young girl we'd saved, her family, her house, was stable now, resting under a shimmering, healing lattice. But Lirae didn't look relieved. She looked haunted. I approached her cautiously. "What's happening?" Her ears angled back, an involuntary admission of concern. "Command has detected razor movement, a significant force, too close, too many." "Another attack?" "No," her voice dropped. "An annihilation wave." My stomach sank. I'd seen one of those once, not in person, a tactical briefing on a frontier outpost. Annihilation waves weren't attacks, they were planetary sterilizations. If the Razors were deploying it here, they're trying to wipe out the medical zone, I said. They believe this facility undermines their war strategy. Her hands curled at her sides. We treat too many, save too many, they cannot allow that. Fear rippled outward through the bioructure, lighting the membranes in streaks of red. "How long do we have?" I asked. "Less than an hour." "And evacuation?" "Impossible," she said, her voice sharp with frustration. "Too many critical patients. Moving them would kill them." "So what's the plan?" She met my eyes. "We defend." In 10 minutes, the medical wing became a fortress. An organic fortress held together by stubbornness, alien biology, and improvised engineering. I directed the half-ambulatory soldiers, both human and alien, to reinforce structural points using the remaining biofilament. Aelyrian medics erected kinetic dampeners normally meant for surgical stabilization, now repurposed as defensive barriers. The bioructure responded to Lirae's commands like a living creature. Walls thickening, support roots digging deeper, surface membranes hardening with translucent armor. But it wasn't enough. Not for a wave designed to erase everything in its path. "Lirae," I said quietly, "we need something bigger." Her ears twitched, anticipation, fear, certainty. "You have an idea." "I have a terrible idea," I corrected. "Which means it's the only kind that works." She exhaled sharply. "Tell me." I explained, drawing diagrams in the dust, gesturing broadly, talking too fast. She followed every word, her expression shifting from confusion to calculation to stunned disbelief. "You want to invert the resonance field of the entire bioructure," she summarized. "Exactly. And use the medical lattice to project a counter-frequency." "Yep, and you believe the structure will survive this?" "Nope." She stared at me, ears slowly rising. "It might kill you," she said, "only if it works." "You are impossible," she whispered. "And you saved my life," I said, "so now I return the favor." "This is not how balance works. You said once that life is worth preserving." "Yes, but not at the cost of." "Lirae," I said softly, "let me help, really help." After a long moment, her ears lowered, not in fear, in acceptance. "Very well," she whispered, "we do this together." We worked side by side in a controlled frenzy, connecting resonance conduits, rerouting power filaments, linking the biolattice to the bioructure's neural core. Every part of the living structure pulsed brighter as we synchronized the grid. The resonance core, normally used for stabilizing shock trauma, now glowed hot white, trembling with repressed energy. "This is overloading," I warned. "Yes," Lirae said, "it must." "Is that safe?" "No, fair enough." She palmed the core interface, her hands glowing with that beautiful blue-white light I'd grown to recognize. Her healing field, amplified, sharpened to a weaponized edge. The room brightened. The walls vibrated. The entire bioructure thrummed like a colossal heart. She stepped close to me, closer than she ever had in the chaos of healing, and lifted my hand to the interface beside hers. Your field harmonizes with mine, she said quietly. We discovered that today. Do you understand what that means? No, I said honestly. It means, she murmured, that you and I can amplify one another. It is extremely rare. And extremely dangerous. Then we're exactly the right pair to run this. Her lips parted, surprise, then something deeper, but she said nothing. She only aligned her hand with mine, and the world erupted in light. The annihilation wave hit the outer perimeter first, a rolling wall of violet energy that vaporized stone and metal. The ground shook as dust rose in violent storms. The bioructure groaned like a living thing in agony. Now, Evan. Lirae shouted. We activated the resonance inversion. Power surged through the conduits, through the structure, through us. The force was indescribable, a pressure like being crushed and stretched and dissolved all at once. The bioructure screamed as the counter-frequency collided with the annihilation wave. Light collided with light. Energy exploded outward in concentric ripples, distorting the air like fractured glass. Hold it. Lirae cried, her voice trembling with strain. Do not let go. I'm here, I shouted back, gripping the interface as the energy threatened to tear my arm from its socket. The wave pressed inward. We pressed back. The structure buckled. So did I. She can't sustain it. Someone shouted behind us. Lirae snarled, an actual snarl, fierce and primal. She will, she hissed, because she is not alone. She shifted closer, shoulder touching mine, energy flaring brighter where our fields merged. The resonance core screamed. The wave shattered, and the world went silent. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor. Dust floated in slow patterns, drifting through beams of dim, flickering light. My vision swam. My ears rang. Someone was calling my name. Evan Ward, look at me. Lirae, her voice cracked. Her hands were on my face, glowing faintly with what little field strength she had left. Stay awake, she whispered. Stay with me. I'm fine, I croaked. You are not fine, she said fiercely, tears softening her voice. But you are alive. You are alive. She pulled me into her arms, something halfway between holding me and keeping herself upright. Her breath trembled where it brushed my hair. Her ears rested against my forehead, a gesture so intimate for her species that her staff politely pretended not to notice. You saved everyone, she whispered. We saved everyone, I corrected. She closed her eyes, forehead still pressed to mine. This war recovery never feels like victory. It feels like the aftermath of lifting something too heavy for too long. Shaking muscles, hollow lungs, a mind trying to catch up with what the body barely survived. The bioructure slowly rebuilt itself over the next hours, its organic walls knitting together like scar tissue forming over a wound. Medics moved with the sluggishness of people who had poured out the last of their strength and were now running on instinct alone. Lirae should have been resting. Every medic told her to. Every diagnostic panel recommended it. Every physiological indicator in her glowing palms insisted she stop before she collapsed. But she didn't. She checked every patient, recalibrated every healing lattice, walked the perimeter herself to ensure no microfractures threatened collapse. She spoke to her staff in quiet tones, reassuring, grounding. Her ears were tucked low with exhaustion, but her posture remained steady, as though the structure itself leaned on her to stay upright. I found her near the heart of the med wing, kneeling beside the young Aelyrian girl whose life we'd saved hours earlier. The girl slept peacefully beneath glimmers of soft blue healing light. You should be lying down, I said gently. Lirae's ears twitched at the sound of my voice, then rose slightly, relief softening the rigid lines of her face. So should you, she said, yet you are here. Because someone keeps ignoring every warning light in this place. She exhaled slowly. I cannot rest while others may still need me. I lowered myself to the floor beside her. Even that simple movement sent a dull ache through my ribs. Sit, I told her, not as an order, as a request. Her gaze flicked to my face, a long, searching look. Then she sat, folding gracefully beside me, back touching the wall. Her shoulders sagged the moment she let herself stop moving. For a while, we said nothing. Just listened to the quiet symphony of the bioructure breathing, patients murmuring, healing systems humming like soft wind chimes. Then she spoke. There will be consequences, she said softly. For what we did today, for my involvement, for revealing my field potential to command. What kind of consequences? Her voice dropped lower. My exile was not merely disciplinary. It was political. There are those in the ascendancy who consider my methods disruptive. Her ears folded slightly. Some will see my actions today as proof that I should never have been removed from frontline authority. Others will see it as a threat to existing hierarchies. And what do you see it as? I asked. She considered this a long moment. I see it as necessary, she whispered, and inevitable. Her hands rested loosely in her lap, still faintly glowing, unable to fully turn off the power she'd pushed too far. I gently touched one. You saved everyone in this building. We saved everyone, she corrected, glancing at me. Your engineering was as critical as my resonance. Don't deflect, I said, not now. Her eyes softened. She didn't reply. Instead, she leaned her head back against the wall, her long ears brushing my shoulder. Aelyrian intimacy came through gestures subtle and instinctive. This one felt like the quiet between storms. Evan Ward, she murmured, I have spent my life learning how to keep others alive. But today, the thought of losing you, her voice faltered, she corrected it. It was destabilizing. I felt my throat tighten. I wasn't planning on dying. You almost did, again. Her fingers curled slightly against mine. This pattern displeases me. I smiled despite everything. Then stay with me, correct my behavior, make sure I don't die out of poor planning. Her ears lifted, surprise, amusement, something warmer. That is a very human proposal, she whispered. And your response? She looked at me, really looked, the way she had before the wave hit, the way someone looks when they're memorizing a face. My response, she said quietly, is that I have already chosen you. This is merely acknowledgement. Something inside my chest eased, something that had been coiled since the moment she knelt over me on the battlefield. But reality, persistent as ever, pressed in. What happens now? I asked. She inhaled slowly, gathering herself before answering. Command will recall me, she said. They will demand explanations. They will insist I return to the core systems for evaluation. Her voice thinned. I do not know if they will allow me to continue my work here. And me. You will be transferred to a human facility for final recovery. Her ears dipped again. It is unlikely you will be permitted to stay in Aelyrian jurisdiction. Our laws regarding cross-species medical exposure are complicated. A hollow ache formed beneath my ribs, not physical. So we're getting separated. For now, she said, and the firmness in her tone surprised me. Not forever. What makes you so sure? She reached into her belt and pulled out a crystalline object, smooth, glowing faintly with her resonance. The same one she'd used to stabilize several patients. She placed it in my hand. This, she said, contains my biosignature. It will let any Aelyrian system locate me, no matter how far I am reassigned. Her voice wavered. It is not given lightly. What does it mean? It means, she whispered, that I want to be found. I closed my fingers around the crystal, warm, alive, hers. And what do you want when I do find you? I asked. Her lips curved into the softest smile, barely visible. I want to see who you become after this war, she said. The man who stood with me against an annihilation wave, the man whose resonance aligned with mine. Her eyes glowed faintly. The man I did not expect, yet cannot forget. Emotion slammed into me harder than any blast. Before either of us could speak again, a comm signal crackled at the far end of the wing. Human personnel from Sector 7, prepare for immediate transfer. Lirae stiffened, ears snapping upright in alarm. It is time, she whispered. She rose unsteadily. I stood with her. For a moment, neither of us moved. The room seemed too quiet, as if the world wanted to stretch this moment as long as it could. She stepped closer, so close I felt the faint warmth radiating from her skin, still charged with lingering resonance. Her forehead touched mine, Aelyrian vow contact. Her ears curled forward, brushing my temples. Evan Ward, she breathed, do not die before we meet again. I won't, I whispered, not after everything we survived. Her hand slid down my cheek, her thumb lingering just a second too long. Then she let go, and I felt it. The moment the war reclaimed us. Soldiers escorted me toward the evacuation transport. I glanced back. Lirae stood in the entrance of the bioructure, illuminated by its soft light, her silhouette tall, tired, unbreakable. Her gaze never left mine. As the transport doors closed, she lifted one hand, palm facing outward, an Aelyrian gesture of promise and return. I pressed my hand to the glass, the engines roared. The ground fell away.